I now reconvene the regular council meeting for Monday, April 28th, 2025. Before we get underway, we would like to acknowledge that this council meeting has been held on the homeland of the Tanaka people. I'd also like to welcome members of the gallery and anybody who's viewing remotely from home. Welcome. Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda of the regular council meeting Monday, April 28th, 2025? Mover, please. Councillor Stetsky, Councillor Bassett. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Can I get a motion to adopt the following minutes of the public hearing of Monday, November 7th, 2025? Minutes of the regular council meeting of Monday, April 7th, 2025. Mover, please. Councillor Popoff, Councillor Ray. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Now we're moving into delegations. We have one delegation this evening. Sergeant Barry Graham and Amanda Peters from Cranbrook RCMP are here tonight to present the first quarter Mayor's report for 2025. Barry and Amanda, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Council, staff, and general public. Thanks for the opportunity to report on our first quarter. Detachment news. So we had a search warrant which resulted in seized and controlled substances and stolen property. While executing a search warrant on a residence, our general investigation section seized suspected controlled substances, stolen property. Several individuals were arrested and the incident is still under investigation. We've had significant attendance by our emergency response team, one in particular in February with the police dog service. We safely apprehended a dangerous offender from Alberta. The offender was held in custody until they were returned to Alberta. So due to the multi-jurisdictional nature of the operation, the costs associated, member overtime and regular pay were recovered from the province. Normally that would have been a municipal expense. Dangerous offender arrested in late February. We also had notice of a high-risk offender believed to be in a stolen vehicle in Cranbrook. And while on patrol, our members observed the stolen vehicle and attempted to stop it. And using a coordinated approach in an attempt to flee, the suspect rammed two of our police vehicles, causing extensive damage. The suspect fled on foot, and after a brief foot chase was arrested. $9,000 in cost recovery was received through site funding. For that, again, it happened in the municipality, but we applied for that. The property damage was minimal in respect to the impact on a couple of our members for that. As you would guess, that was a tremendous impact. And as a result of back to the property part, the two vehicles both sustained extensive damage, resulting in one vehicle being written off and the other being repaired at a cost of the detachment of $25,000. With the vehicle repair and the replacement vehicle, that one incident cost our detachment budget approximately $100,000. Like I said, we were able to recover about $9,000 of the overtime through site funding. Provincial site funding for the member overtime expenses and the towing of the vehicles. However, site doesn't cover the cost of repairing or replacing vehicles. And that was because the person that we were dealing with was a repeat violent offender and covered under site funding. And like I said, two of our members were injured in the incident, placed on medical leave, which is reflected in the human resource update I'll provide in a moment. So other detachment news. So in 2020, we, Cranbrook Detachment with Elk Valley and Columbia Valley RCMP conducted a multi-jurisdictional investigation into allegations of extortion and threats through a social media platform. After a thorough investigation, the suspect was identified and taken into police custody. RCMP forwarded a report to Crown Council recommending charges which were ultimately approved. And in January, just a few months back, Stephen Plusquette was sentenced to a global sentence of 6 years. Along with other ancillary orders. Significant sentence, and a lot of hard work went into that through 3 detachments. And I'd like to point out Constable Katie Forgeron from Cranbrook, retired since. She was probably the biggest contributor for our detachment on that one. So volunteer recruitment, Cranbrook Detachment underwent a volunteer recruitment drive in March and received applications from several potential volunteers. Screening still underway there. And for our auxiliary program, the detachment is in the process of onboarding our first 2 auxiliaries. So they are highly trained volunteers who participate in community policing, crime prevention, public safety initiatives, Auxiliaries are required to complete 150 hours of training to operate as a Tier 3 auxiliary, and their activities may include public education, community patrols with a member, and attending community events, and anything within the 3-page document that we got saying what the Tier 3 could do. So yeah, the applicants are in the first stage of the recruitment process from the volunteer drive. Community engagement. So we've had attendance at the College of the Rockies Career Fair. Cranbrook members and the Community Engagement Coordinator met with over 400 attendees at the College of the Rockies Career Fair. We were also involved in a winter driving presentation with BC Highway Patrol. Delivered a winter driving safety presentation to several individuals through the Columbia Basin Alliance for Literacy. And community engagement. We were involved in the polar plunge. So members were freezing for a reason when they made a splash at the polar plunge in support of Special Olympics BC. And probably the most significant community engagement piece was the our Cranbrook RCMP Facebook page. It's been discussed here quite often, and we relaunched the Facebook page and is now actively utilizing that platform to share information, crime prevention tips, and engage with the public. Our followers have risen dramatically. We've got a lot of good feedback, and looking to keep building on that. Human resources, incoming, we've had Corporal Brittany George with Police Dog Service come in and our canine partner, Porter. Outgoing member, Constable Anna Buchka. And vacancies right now, we have on parental leave, 2 constables, long-term medical leave, 3 constables, short-term medical leave, 1 constable, administrative graduated return duties, 1 constable, and 1 hard vacancy that we haven't been able to staff yet. Over this quarter, we saw 3 members transition to parental and medical absences, 4 return from extended absences, which was fantastic. 2 of the long-term medical leave, like over 30 days, was due to the members being injured in that dynamic arrest at the high-risk offender. 1 of these members has recently returned to restricted administrative duties, in addition to another member who's already on administrative duties due to being placed on restricted duties. So overall, we're operating around just over 21 full-time equivalents for regular member constables. When fully staffed, should be at 26, 30 if you consider the unfunded positions. So that means we're 71% of our members are rotable. And due to these unavoidable fluctuations in our staffing levels, such as parental leave, medical leave, other injuries, we do continue to rely on overtime to maintain operations. And our preference is and priority to fill overtime shifts with local members to reduce the travel costs. It's oftentimes not an option for us. And therefore, we see members from out of our jurisdiction coming to Cranbrook for overtime shifts. One thing I can say to that is that we are starting to see more local engagement in the overtime. It was difficult to encourage people to come in when they've been quite busy, overworked, overwhelmed, and it's good to see now that there are some people that are and it's good to have the local people that know the hotspots, they know the players, they know who's who, to be able to continue with those investigations as well. So hopefully that trend continues. Community engagement, so crime reduction initiatives. We had 2 for business engagement, 3 community patrols by volunteers, 4 community events, 1 volunteer training and meetings, and 2 crime prevention presentations. And volunteer hours contributed 59. So this quarter, our community engagement coordinator delivered 2 crime prevention presentations, attending 4 community events to engage with the community and provide crime reduction tips, as well as volunteer recruitment. Cranbrook RCMP volunteers conducted 3 community patrols, which is an Observe It Reported initiative. Between training and deployments, our volunteers contributed 59 hours over the quarter. And a huge thank you to our dedicated volunteers, especially as this is National Volunteer Week. 49 joint patrols with bylaws, 39 curfew checks, and 16 proactive traffic enforcement and patrols conducted in hotspot areas identified through reports to police and crime trends. And we are going to try and do a little better with the reporting on that. We know more is happening, just trying to actually being able to capture it statistically. So reports to police, 2,262 for the quarter. That includes all information files and reports, calls for service, dispatch calls, member attendance, 1905. That's down a bit from the first quarter last year. Reports to police by month, you can see it doesn't change significantly. Again, historically, we would see a considerable drop off over the colder months, but a little bit of one into February, but for the most part, the line staying consistent. Prisoners held down from first quarter last year by 14. Reports submitted to Crown Council up from 54 to 85. So that's 57% increase over last year. Reports approved, 32. Mental health calls for service, significant jump here from 101 for first quarter last year to 173. Like it's a 71% increase. Hours waiting at the hospital, 27 hours, which is down considerably from first quarter last year, which when you consider the increase in the files and the decrease in the hours at the hospital, the communications with the hospital are working. We're getting members through much quicker. Traffic tickets issued, 24, traffic warnings, 7, provincial roadside prohibitions, 38, up from 7 same quarter last year, and overdose police attendance, which is significant, 2, and it's a drop from 21 of the quarter last year. And expand on a report to Crown Council, it can take weeks, sometimes months, for back and forth communications with Crown. We may be required to provide additional evidence or information before charge is approved. That's why it appears our charge approval for this quarter might be low. Of the 85 files we submitted to Crown, the majority of them are still in the process of being reviewed or additional information provided. Our charge approval rate is still very high. With the implementation of the body-worn cameras back in December, we experienced a significant backlog of reports to Crown. Due to additional information we were required to submit and the additional steps in the process, we're still working through that backlog and working hard with Crown to identify as many efficiencies as possible to reduce the admin. And so the metrics, you look at the assaults up from first quarter last year. I can go through these one by one, or we can just read it. I might drag this meeting out too longer. Not too many significant changes other than motor vehicle accidents. The change of 76, that was up significantly from the year prior, but not anything outlandish there. A slight decrease in assaults by 8 files, decrease in sex offenses as well as break and enters, both commercial and residential. Theft of vehicle, from vehicle also down. And although we've seen an increase in frauds reported, as well as mischief under $5,000, we received a significant increase in reports of motor vehicle accidents, so not uncommon with winter weather. And motor vehicle accidents could include everything from minor fender benders, hit and runs, more serious collisions. We do not attend the majority of motor vehicle accidents that are reported to us, as police attendance is not necessary. However, we do take the report for information and provide the police file number to those involved. That
Council, to start with Councillor Popoff and probably work our way around.
Yes, thank you, Barry. Thank you for the report. I like this format. This format seems to work better for me. It's more, gives me a little more content. When you talk in one of your first slides about the dangerous offender arrested, 2 police vehicles were damaged and other serious damage to a $100,000 plus number you gave. What did that cost the taxpayer after everything else was settled?
Both vehicles were municipal funded vehicles. Like of our fleet of 8 general duty vehicles, 3 are provincial, 5 are municipal. And we just got a provincial vehicle added to the fleet this year, which helps statistically when it happens. Unfortunately, both were municipal, so the total cost was $100,000.
Well, thank you. Well, I'm not suggesting don't do it, but there's a burden, financial burden, when these unfortunate matters happen. So thank you for that. Later on, you have this wonderful photo of some RCMP members going into the polar plunge. Was that part of the 59 volunteer hours that you identified later? These were paid staff?
No, that would, like at the member hours wouldn't have been, like volunteer hours, I think we've kept just as civilian volunteer.
Okay, so this was paid time for that. Very good.
No, that would have been them on their days off.
On their days off?
Yeah.
Okay, so it was volunteer. Okay, thank you. And thank you for their service doing that.
Thank
And
you.
lastly, do we use drones?
Sorry?
Do we use drones?
Yes, we actually have, we're very fortunate here. We have two very experienced RCMP drone operators, one in our forensic identification section and the other one who's been the coordinator, I mean, may even be right now for the division. We have a number of different drones that are being deployed in a number of situations, whether it's, I shouldn't be too specific, but some of the searches in a rural area, where we can't use search and rescue. If there's a danger to the public, we can't use civilians. We're using drones. We're using drones for collision scenes. They're able to map out some of the things so quickly that replace a lot of the old shut the highway down for 3 or 4 hour measurements. But we can send like the smaller drones. It's amazing the technology that we are gaining. The smaller drones, if there's a concern going into a residence, we had one a few years ago with possible booby trapped, and we were able to send a small drone in to make sure that there was nothing that would hurt the members on entry.
So these drones are being utilized within the city limits as well.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Ray.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks very much for your report. Excellent information for council and for the community, so really appreciate it. So just a couple of questions. So here we are, we're into biking season. So from the detachment, in terms of key messages, what would you like to share with the community regarding the importance of wearing bike helmets and following bike safety rules?
That's a great question. And bike helmets, it shouldn't even be a discussion that it's a fine of $29. It should be common sense. I think it's important that parents and older siblings model that behavior. I think it's come around quite a bit where it wasn't cool to wear helmets before, but it's like a seatbelt. You know, it's only important when you need it. And we don't like to have to enforce those rules in order to make people follow it. Respecting the rules of the road, knowing your hand signals, not being a liability, say for biking on a sidewalk. You can't bike on a sidewalk. There's pedestrians that are not prepared to have you sneak up behind them, and yeah, just practice those things. We will try and get more bike rodeos through our bike patrol members, and engage in with members of the community to get those safety things out. But just being responsible and good habits is the biggest message.
Thank you. And just a couple quick follow-ups. So does our detachment have any kind of community outreach campaign? I think I saw a post last year from Fernie where they had like good job certificates or something that the officers could hand out to kids and youth, and I know maybe even adults who were wearing their bike helmets. So do we have that as a resource in Cranbrook?
We do, and as long as I can remember, 7-Eleven has provided us with gift certificates or coupons. I think we call it positive ticketing.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if we have others, if it's just 7-Eleven, but oh yeah, just the Slurpees. But we do try and get out and get that done, and hopefully we'll deliver a lot of those this year.
That's great. And then just one other quick question on another topic. So again, this is the time of year when we start to see youth and adults riding what I understand are electric motorbikes or dirt bikes. This isn't my wheelhouse of knowledge really. So I've heard Talarias and Surons, I think, are a couple of brands, and it seems they really go. I've seen them on sidewalks. I've seen them on residential streets in town. So for clarification, for people like me who don't know, what are the rules for riding these vehicles, including licensing and insurance? And are these types of vehicles allowed on pathways such as rails to trails? I assume they're not supposed to be on sidewalks.
Sidewalk, definitely not. The mini motorcycles, it all depends on the classification. So an e-bike has a pedal and a crank. So basically it's the same as a bicycle. Not on the sidewalk, on the road. The only difference, so that is the significant thing with it being like a bike. These electric motorcycles, not on the road at any time, not on a sidewalk. Rails to Trails, for example, prohibits motorized vehicles. The only exemption from that is like a motorized wheelchair. It goes through public and private land, so it depends on where they are. You could be looking at the Off-Road Vehicle Act. You could be looking at the Wildlife Act if it's harassing animals. Motor Vehicle Act applies on the roadway. Yeah, that's a great question and something that we probably can help clarify on a Facebook post to get it out there to navigate the complications, because it is quite a bit when you sit down and look at what's 50 cc's. The thick scooters are like a bike. Same thing. They're not supposed to be on the sidewalk, though. You know, most times you will see that, and they got to be when they can be on the road less than a 50-kilometer posted speed limit, but over that they have to be on designated cycling lanes. So there's a lot to it, and education, and we'll hopefully curb, no pun intended, some of that.
Councilor Bissett? Nothing. Councilor Stetzky?
Yeah, thank you. So you said $29 was the fine if you're riding a bicycle and not wearing a helmet. What about the scooters around town? You know, our scooter program. Is it the same $29 fine?
Same, yeah. It falls under Motor Vehicle Act for that. Not a great deterrent.
No.
Common sense should be the thing, but you know, identifying and the positive ticketing of the people that are doing the right things, maybe having that stop with somebody and giving them a warning and maybe writing the ticket. Nobody wants to be stopped by a police officer, and you know, we'll try and get the bike patrol people out and on some of this stuff, but.
Quite frankly, it's a rare thing to see a person on a scooter wearing a helmet around Cranbrook, at least from my experience. A couple other things. So there's provincial vehicles and there's our municipal vehicles. If a provincial vehicle got smashed up similarly, would the province replace those vehicles?
Yes.
Okay. If it happens again, give me a call. I'm happy to switch license plates for you, because we shouldn't cost taxpayers $100,000 in Cranbrook for doing their duty.
It is.
My personal opinion.
And I appreciate that. Thank you. It's difficult. You know, the courage of the members involved that night, and it wasn't their action; it was the action of the offender.
Yeah.
You know, like you could see the movies and the way it used to be and pit maneuvers and all that stuff. It wasn't that. You know, this was a violent attack on the members, and thankfully they had the protection of the police cars. You know, the one that was written off was getting older in age, so it was going to be a budgetary impact maybe next year. But yeah, we on a strictly financial thing, we lost the lottery on that one. The fact that it was 2 municipal vehicles.
The other one I want to talk about just quickly, the mental health, the rise in incidents. And of course, on the weekend, we saw what can happen if it gets extreme in terms of what happened in Vancouver. But so do we have any officers that are specially trained in dealing with mental health challenges?
Well, actually, it's a good question that every officer is specially trained. Like we have crisis intervention de-escalation training. Apparently, I'm not one of them if I can't remember the acronym. And we have to keep up to date on those things. There's mandatory videos, things that we have to watch every year. And we did have a mental health liaison that was a step up and kept ahead with the conferences, with everything that's happening, was involved in the situation table, all the different engagement portions that we haven't been able to staff, and we're going to have to come up with some decision on that. But we try our best. It's not the goal of every interaction is to get it to the lowest level. And sometimes it takes 5 or 10 minutes extra talking to somebody, recognizing the issues, knowing some of the history. Like we have ways of identifying, for example, we had a presenter at a recent conference about autism, and some of the things that they're promoting with barcodes for doors that, you know, if a member or any community person's coming up, this is kind of the things that you can expect here. And some things that we may interpret as someone being non-responsive, compliant, I guess would be the old term. We get more insight. Well, this is just who they are, right? And We can, have different flags for houses gives us a heads up as to what we could be dealing with when we get there and what the strategies are, who the caseworkers are, who are the community contacts. It's not always the police that can fully resolve something. We just need to stop bad things from happening in the moment. And the technology, education, all those things are helping us do our job better, because the last thing we want to do is get into something that somebody gets hurt. And that's not good for anybody. It doesn't do much for the trust that we're trying to build with people.
So if you could pass on to your members, I have spoken with some people in the community who have family members who are struggling with mental health issues. And they said that they really appreciated how they were treated by the RCMP. So please pass that on.
Thank you. I will. I appreciate that.
Thank you very much. Yes, certainly, last comment by Councillor Stetsky. I've witnessed it and I hear it time and again. The response of your officers, it's certainly different than it was years ago. They really identify well and they're very, very respectful of every situation they're in and the people they're dealing with. Doesn't matter, the extent of the problem. So it's come a long, long way. Looking at these stats tonight, there's some positive changes in some of the numbers for sure. Hopefully those are becoming trends, Barry, I'm really impressed. A few years back, we talked about the community policing model, community policing, and you and your department have done a great job, really turning that corner and focusing on Cranbrook specifically, the issues in Cranbrook. And, we know all the characters and whatnot, right? So, and it makes such a difference. So thanks very much to you and your staff.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So, have a good night, guys. Moving into bylaws. First bylaw for consideration tonight is from Engineering Development Services regarding Plail Road closure and disposition bylaw 4162/2025. Bylaws back tonight for adoption. Can I get a motion that council adopt Plail Road closure and disposition bylaw number 4162/2025? Mover, please, Councillor Brissette. Councillor Popoff. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Next bylaw is also from Engineering Development Services regarding official community plan amendment bylaw number 4186/2025 and zoning amendment bylaw number 4187/2025 at 800 810 Cranbrook Street North. These bylaws are back before council tonight for adoption. Can I get a motion that council adopt City of Cranbrook official community plan, our path to Cranbrook 2042 amendment bylaw number 4186/2025? Mover, please, Councillor Ray, Councillor Stetsky. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. And can I get a motion that council adopt City of Cranbrook zone amendment bylaw number 4187/2025? Mover, please, Councillor Popoff, Councillor Stetsky. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously as well. Thank you very much. Next bylaw for consideration tonight is from Recreation and Culture regarding recreation and culture fees and charges bylaw number 4195/2025. Bylaw is back tonight for adoption as well. Can I get a motion that council adopt recreation and culture fees and charges bylaw number 4195/2025? Mover, please, Councillor Ray, Councillor Brissette. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Next bylaw for consideration is from Finance regarding 5-year financial plan 2025 to 2029, bylaw number 4196/2025. This bylaw is before council for first, second, and third reading. Can I please have staff provide an overview? Charlotte?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. This report recommends 3 readings of the 2025 through 2029 5-year financial plan bylaw. In 2024, Council directed staff to target a tax increase for the 2025 tax levy of 5%. This would be challenging as the tax levy increase for 2025 was budgeted to be 8.5 6% and did not include increased costs and reduced revenues that were not known when the 5-year financial plan was adopted in February 2024. To achieve the 5% would mean reducing the 2025 tax levy by almost $1.3 million. Council directed staff to conduct a survey so residents could learn of the budget challenges and provide their feedback on the 2025 budget. The statistically valid survey and public opinion survey components meant the budget process was able to get underway with the community's input early in the budget process rather than at the end. Staff and council worked incredibly hard through the entire process. At the March 24th, 2025 regular meeting, staff presented a proposed 5-year plan with a tax levy increase of 6.4% for 2025. Council considered 2 options to lower the 2025 tax levy to 5%. The 2 options were to eliminate the growth component of the road dedicated tax and to transfer funds from surplus. Council voted 6-1 in favor of proceeding with the 6.4% increase for 2025 and directed staff to bring back the 2025 through 2029 5-year financial plan for 3 readings. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I get a motion? The council give first reading to 5-year financial plan 2025 to 2029, bylaw number 4196, 2025. Mover, please. Councillor Stetsky, Councillor Bissett. Discussion. Councillor Stetsky.
Thank you, Mayor. So I'm just curious in terms of the trend, the downward trend, which is a very positive thing. And of course, the councils of the day will decide ultimately on where those tax rates finish up. But why does it kind of, well, next year's a little higher, but then after that, it continually decreases over the term?
Councillor Stetsky through Mayor Price, that's a pretty typical trend that you see in the 5-year financial plan. It is as year 5 becomes year 1, we of course have more clarity around how things might change. For example, the RCMP costs are not very well known that far out. So as they become clear in later years, they certainly have been impacting our levy quite significantly. And we've also seen over the last few years with the RCMP contract, and I don't mean to be picking on this, but it has been a major contributor, is we've been able to smooth out the increases we've seen in the RCMP contract by using prior year surpluses. And as that fades away, and as those costs keep going up, we see these significant bumps like we saw this year. I think it was close to $1 million increase if we had funding it all from taxes. So, you know, and the other thing that happens is non-market change, for example. Non-market change in all the years out is at $200,000. That will likely increase as we get into, you know, as year 5 becomes year 1, because we just don't have clarity about what will be happening there. So there's a lot of uncertainty, I guess is the right word, as the further you go away into year 5. So sorry, this is creaking a lot. So it is very typical that later years are lower. What we have done in some years in the past is we have bumped up transfers to reserves to maybe bring some of those lower years down a little bit to show that, and this is a discussion we've had with council many times, to show that we really do need to fund our reserves to a greater extent. And so we have done that in the past to kind of even it out a little bit. And that was fairly easy to do when we were looking at 3 or 4%, but it gets a little bit more challenging when we have some years like next year, which is going to 7 point something. So there's nothing unusual in what you're seeing. And I would expect that year 5, the percent in year 5 will look very different when year 5 becomes year 1.
Okay, further? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Excuse me. Can I get a motion that council gives second reading to 5-year financial plan bylaw number 4196, 2025? Mover, please, Councillor Stetsky, Councillor Ray. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. And finally, can I get a motion that council give third reading to the 5-year financial plan bylaw number 4196, 2025? Mover, Councillor Bassett, Councillor Popov. Discussion. All in favor? It's carried unanimously. Just before we move on, just like to comment on the budget chart, and again, the amount of work that goes into this, I don't think people really appreciate it. It's almost a year-long process, really, at the end of the day. And certainly the process that we're involved in is 3/4 of a year, but staff are on top of this year-round now. So I was doing a little bit of thinking back. So this is my 20th year working on the corporate budget with the city of Cranbrook. So it's quite interesting, and I've just watched the evolution of the process. And there's been good processes in the past, but every year we agree that we're going to do a review and refine it to make things better. My personal observation this year is that this was truly a corporate budget. And by that, I mean, if you look at the input and the involvement, every level of city staffing was involved this year, right from the people on the ground in operations through to the managers, the directors, the administrator, and council. For years, it would be really administrator and finance director for a long time, and that was standard everywhere. Then the mayor would get involved at that level, and then bringing in the department heads, and that's about as far as it ever went. But I saw a lot of input this year, and we saw where even the junior staff had comments that were really relevant, and they were considered. And I think when you look at corporately as a corporation, the citizens as well, the citizen survey, we sent the citizen survey out, and certainly the comments that came back, I think council agree, we're pretty much spot on with things. Those comments were taken very seriously, and they were considered in some of the tougher budget decisions that we had to make this year. So, you know, I think just looking back and where we are today, and I know that, you know, finance and the administration and future councils will continue to, you know, refine and improve things. But I certainly have to say that I've never felt in a better place and never more comfortable to present a budget. You know, and I've said to a few people out there that I've, you know, had conversations on the street. I'll sit down with the director of finance, with anybody in this community who wants to go line by line if they think there's any savings or anywhere that they can cut these numbers down. So thank you very much. And thanks staff very much, and thank the community for their involvement in this. Next up, we have a report from finance regarding the 2025 tax rates bylaw number 4197, 2025. This bylaw is before council tonight for first, second, and third reading. Can I please have Charlotte give us an overview of this report, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and the rest of council. Before I give a brief overview of this report, I just would like to highlight to council that we are planning a special meeting next Monday at 9 a.m. We do have a committee of the whole scheduled for that day. And it will just be a few minutes to deal with the adoption of the 5-year financial plan and hopefully the adoption of the tax rate plan or tax rate bylaw. The reason for this is because it's possible that there is will be a postal strike on the 16th of May. So in order to avoid that and be able to have the tax notices out in the mail before that becomes a possibility, we wanted to move up the adoption of those two bylaws by 1 week so that the calculations, the printing, the stuffing, and all of that can be done next week. and then go to the post office planning for the 12th of May, as opposed to going out later in that week and possibly getting held up by the postal strike. So just for council's information. With respect to this report, it is recommending 3 readings of the Cranbrook 2025 tax rates bylaw. In developing the rates, we follow 2 fundamental principles. We develop rates that preserve the existing tax burden distribution of approximately 63 and 34% across the residential and business classes. These 2 classes make up almost 99% of the assessed values within the city's boundaries. The second principle we follow is to develop rates that result in the change to the amount paid by the residential class being the same as the overall city tax levy increase communicated through the city's budget process. In this case, that was 6.4%. So the residential class with these tax rates will see a 6.4% increase for the average house, and the business class slightly lower at 6.18%. We also collect taxes for other authorities. We collect taxes for the regional district and the Kootenay East Regional Hospital District. So those are will also be on the tax notices, as well as school taxes and frontage taxes, which I think we're doing some adoption after this of some frontage taxes. All those items are on your tax notice and are not considered in the 6.4%. In considering alternative tax rates, because of the makeup of our assessment group, shifting from one class to another is a direct impact on the other class. So for all the time that I have been in this chair, these are the principles we've followed, and the rates are adjusted to achieve those principles. And I guess the other item I would say, so a representative house, this is now based on 2024 data. I don't have 2025 data yet. This is data that is collected by the province through our LGED forms that we submit to them and various other reports. So based on the 2024 data, the value of a representative house in Cranbrook is $481,000 and ranks 69th out of representative homes in the 159 municipalities in British Columbia who provided data. 2 municipalities did not. So there are 161 municipalities in Cranbrook, and we are ranked as number 69, lowest to highest. And then based on the same data, the total residential property taxes and charges, municipal and other taxes, as well as frontage taxes and user fees paid by a representative home in Cranbrook ranks 93rd out of 159, coming in around the 58th percentile. This means that approximately 42% of the representative homeowners in other BC municipalities pay more than a Cranbrook homeowner does, and 58% pay less. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlotte. Can I get a motion that council give first reading to Cranbrook tax rates bylaw number 4197, 2025? Councillor Ray, Councillor Lissette. Discussion. Councillor Statsky.
So just an observation, the Cranbrook taxpayers pay almost $1 million to the Regional District of East Kootenay. And I know our RDEK reps and our CAO are working hard to try and ensure we get as much value back as possible out of that $1 million. So I would encourage you to continue to work on that initiative.
Thank you. Further? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Can I get a motion that council gives second reading to Cranbrook tax rate bylaw number 4197, 2025? Mover, please. Councillor Popoff, Councillor Statsky. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Can I get a motion that council give third reading to Cranbrook tax rates bylaw number 4197, 2025? Councillor Statsky, Councillor Ray. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Next bylaw for consideration is also from Finance regarding water frontage tax amendment bylaw number 4198, 2025. This bylaw is back before council tonight for adoption. Can I get a motion? The council adopt water frontage tax amendment bylaw number 4198, 2025. Mover, please, Councillor Ray, Councillor Bissett. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Next bylaw for consideration also from finance regarding sewer frontage tax amendment bylaw number 4199, 2025. This bylaw is back before council tonight for adoption as well. Can I get a motion that council adopt sewage or sewer frontage tax amendment bylaw number 4199, 2025? Mover, please, Council Popoff, Councillor Bissett. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Great work, Charlotte. Next bylaw for consideration tonight is from Corporate Services regarding firearms bylaw number 4200, 2025. This bylaw is back tonight for adoption. Can I get a motion that council adopt firearms bylaw number 4200, 2025? Councillor Stetsky, Councillor Bissett. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Next bylaw is from Engineering to Development Services regarding official community plan amendment by number 4201, 2025 at 950 Wildstone Drive. This bylaw is before council tonight for first reading. Can I get staff to provide a brief overview here? Connor and Mike, floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So this is a OCP and zoning amendment application that we received from Crown Pacific Development Corporation in March. Now, previous to this, in February, there was a development permit that went through that allowed for the development to have a multifamily dwelling up to 126 units, which is currently the maximum allowable density in the unit. So just a little bit of background there. Now this one is phase 2 of Crown Pacific's proposal bringing forward, and it is to increase the density that's allowed in the Wildstone development plan in the OCP. So just where the property is, it is in Wildstone Drive. It's about 9.8 hectares, so 3.7 or 9.8 acres, 3.7 hectares. It's currently zoned comprehensive development zone CD1, and it is identified on the conceptual development plan in the OCP as low to medium density multiple family district. And that's where that permitted density range is allowed from 72 to 126 dwelling units. So now phase 1 has allowed up to 126 dwelling units. Phase 2, this OCP amendment would allow them to develop up to 252 dwelling units. So the total build out of the parcel would have 4 buildings on it. That would be stacked townhomes that would have the 252 split between those 4 buildings, along with 1 clubhouse building on the property. There's a few obstacles to this development. The lot is located across FortisGas statutory right-of-way. The applicant has been able to secure the permits necessary for utility crossing, allowing power communication, PVC sanitary line, and water main line as well. Yeah, and I just want to reiterate, because it's just up for the OCP first reading, and that is the dwelling that is located in the table within that comprehensive development plan that allows the density to be changed from 72 to 126 to 72 to 252 dwelling units.
Thank you. Great report, Connor. Can I get a motion that council give first reading to City of Cranbrook Official Community Plan, Our Path to Cranbrook 2042 Amendment Bylaw number 4201, 2025, and authorize staff to undertake public consultation on the proposed amendment bylaw? Mover, please, Councillor Blissett, Councillor Ray, Discussion, Councillor Stetsky, Councillor Ray.
I guess this is both for staff and for council that was there previously, but geographically, how does this fit with that proposed increase in density that created a lot of concern in the neighborhood and eventually city council voted it down, if I remember right? That was before the term of this council. So geographically, is it pretty much the same area, and are we going to go through the same kind of process where there were petitions and lots of angry people?
Councillor Stetsky through Mayor Price. The short answer is yes, it will have to go through lots of public consultation. This parcel is directly abutting the parcel that previously went through a similar process. So that parcel would be the parcel to the south of this. So different property, but adjacent to it. This would, after, if first reading was given to the OCP, this would need to go out for the initial public consultation, be advertised in the newspapers, sent to school district and sent to neighboring properties as well. And likely as this unfolds, it would have similar public input as well.
Thanks, Carter. Yeah, that's correct. There was, it wasn't so much a density issue. It was a location on the lot as well. The other one, I believe, was going to be a 6 or 7 story building, and the residents were concerned about the height on those as well. So I think both of those problems have been alleviated, you know, in this new proposal. So yeah. Further questions? All in favor? Oh, yes, Councillor Ray. I apologize. Yes.
It's all good. Thank you, Mayor Price. Connor, I'm sorry, you may have touched on this, but just to highlight again for council and the community, can you just touch on, give us a real short Coles Notes, key points from the city's housing study? And then I know we had updated numbers from the province about kind of the number of housing units we need over the next coming years. Can you kind of give us the key points on that and how this number of new units could help us move closer to those goals?
Councillor Ray through Mayor Price, thank you for your question. I didn't actually touch on that, but thanks for bringing it up. The housing needs report from 2023, we had identified, I believe, 1,415 total units that were needed to meet the city's projected growth over 10 years. Now, with the new SSMUH small scale multi-unit housing policies that came in from the provincial government, we were given a new growth rate to calculate, and we were also given a 5-year plan that we needed to meet. So that number has grown. So in 5 years, we need 1,262 units, and over 20 years, that was calculated to be 3,650 units. So very short and sweet, that's how it looks. As well, in the Wildstone development area that's identified in the OCP, they do have a range of dwelling units for the total capacity that goes from about 800 to 900 up to 1,500. So this fits within the total allowable dwelling units, just not within the specific amount of units that is identified for this lot. As well, the zoning bylaw, so there will be a forthcoming zoning bylaw amendment as well. It has nothing to do with the density in the zoning bylaw. It's just strictly because the comprehensive development plan map that identifies the densities is also in the zoning bylaw, but the zoning bylaw allows for a density based on the amount of hectares. So it's 3.7 hectares. It allows for up to 296 or almost 300 units within the zoning bylaw. So it's really just the OCP and that specific lot. And then Yes, to circle back to your question, over the next 20 years, we're projected to, with the most recent interim housing needs report, 20 years is 3,650 dwelling units, 5 years, 1,262 dwelling units. Thanks.
Thanks, Connor. Counselor Stetzky.
Yeah, thank you. And with some hesitation, I think I'm going to support this at first reading and then wait to see what kind of public input we get.
Certainly. Okay. Counselor Bissett.
Thank you. I'm not hesitating on supporting this at this point in time. I was quite pleased to see this type of development there because there's a number of seniors and people that I know of in my age group, which is senior, by the way, anyways, that are looking to move out of houses and into apartments. And this is an ideal development on that site. Plus, they proposed underground parking. I'm like, cha-ching. That is the way to go if we can on apartment buildings. So I was quite pleased. I'll be interested to see what the public has to say. But I think this is quite complementary to the development at Wildstone. And also, will help the curling club because we always get a lot of members from Wildstone. So that's good.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I would agree that this certainly is quite complementary to the neighborhood. It fits well within the neighborhood plan. So yeah, I'm really happy to see it. So I'll call a question. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Final bylaw for consideration tonight is from Engineering Development Services regarding building amendment bylaw number 4205, 2025. This bylaw is before council tonight for first, second, and third reading. Can I have staff provide a brief overview of the report, please? Connor and Mike again.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor and Council. So this bylaw 4205 as an amendment to the building bylaw. Essentially what it's aiming to do is just to extend the grace period that we've allowed for secondary suites. Initially back in April of 2023, this was extended once already to because of circumstances at the time that were preventing people from possibly uptaking in the program. COVID-19 and maybe supply chain issues as well. Now, since then, we've seen a number of things happen. We've seen the new provincial regulations that are encouraging density. We've seen changes to the costs for builders, and we again haven't seen a tremendous uptake in this program. So we were looking to extend for another 2 years waiving the fees that are associated and DCCs with the secondary suites.
Yep. Can I get a motion that council give first reading to building amendment bylaw number 4205, 2025? Mover, please. Councilor Bissett, Councilor Stetzky. Discussion. Councilor Stetzky.
Do we know, thank you, Mayor, do you know where we are with secondary suites in terms of, at one point there were many illegal suites around Cranbrook, I guess I'll use that term, and then an attempt was made to bring them into the fold. So do we know where things are at?
Councillor Stetzky, through the mayor, we don't have any active tracking from that perspective. When it comes from a bylaw enforcement perspective, if we do have anything reported, then we do go and investigate. But mostly because it hasn't been seen as a huge impact in our community, regarding housing availability or housing supply compared to other communities that have taken a more proactive role in going out and seeking those illegal secondary suites. So right now, that's something that we are going to be looking at, during this period is especially with some of the tools that the province has. The province does have the ability to enforce the provisions that they've made through legislation on secondary suites. So they do have they do have the availability through the provincial legislation to go out and seek these things, but we don't. We just honestly don't have a clear record or understanding of exactly how many out there. Through this grace period, our intention is to use the tools that we do have available, use some of the information that we're getting from the province to see if we can be more proactive in understanding what that status is, to see if we can bring some more of those online with more of a proactive approach rather than an enforcement approach.
Yeah, and I'd just like to offer a comment on that. I'd like to thank staff. This has been going for a number of years. You've done an excellent job moving forward on this, and just, you know, a word to building owners out there that do have the illegal secondary suites out there. There are BC building code requirements that are required, whether or not you're legal or illegal. If something serious happens in your suite, you're going to be liable whether we know about it or not. So, I mean, as you can see, the city's been more than fair trying to work with you to help you be successful and comply. So, again, thanks to staff and certainly the city, it's been going on for a long time. And again, the city's been more than lenient moving forward with this. So thank you. And I think this is great, just extending that one more period before we start rolling out enforcement. So thanks so much. Councillor Papa.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. As we were talking, a question occurred to me. Do agencies like BC Assessment know where these illegal secondary suites are in Cranbrook? Like who tracks them? I mean, other than just word of mouth.
Councillor Popoff, through the mayor, I'm not aware of whether or not BC Assessment has that. I do know some communities where they feel the amount of these secondary suites is infringing on, you know, the housing market and rental availability. They do have bylaw staff that are you know, combing ads and looking at it from that perspective. I know that's something that the province is looking at as well. But as far as BC Assessment, that's something that I'm not aware of.
Thank you. I'm just thinking that might be, it's worthwhile connecting with BC Assessment if we're looking for some numbers and locations as we go forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Teske.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And I just wanted to reinforce that this isn't about taxes. It was about the potentially really catastrophic results that can be there from people that wired their own basements and you know, did a lot of stuff without getting permits ahead of time. And it's all about public safety, not necessarily about taxes.
Yeah, excellent point. Thank you. Further? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Can I get a motion that council gives second reading to the building amendment bylaw number 4205, 2025? Councillor Ray, Councillor Blissett. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Can I get a motion that council give third reading to building amendment number 4205, 2025? Mover Councillor Stetsky, Councillor Blissett. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thanks. Good stuff, guys. Moving into new business. First item of new business tonight is from the CEO's office regarding 2025-2026 CBT resident directed grants or READY grants. Can I please have one of the council members that attended the Columbia Basin Trust community meeting, councillors, who was comprised of councillors Blissett, Stetsky, and Ray, to provide a brief overview of the READY grant. Councillor Ray.
Thank you very much, Mayor. On behalf of our subcommittee, Councillor Stetsky, Councillor Blissett, and myself, we wanted to express our appreciation to all the applicants, all the time that everyone put into their applications. Appreciate all the work from the RDK as well as the administrator of these grants through the CBT. Special thanks to the groups that were able to attend the in-person session to provide additional information. And we did already have some discussion about potential improvements for future years in terms of perhaps offering a virtual option. So we're happy to explore that next year to make attendance at that meeting easier for folks. Definitely, we had a very robust and engaged dialogue among our subcommittee regarding the applications and really did our best to discuss what would most benefit our community, balance a variety of sectors, et cetera. So couple key points we did touch on. We really appreciate the nonprofits that are working hard to diversify their revenue sources beyond this single grant stream, and we would encourage all nonprofits to continue to do that. And there were multiple applications that involved purchasing food. And so we would encourage applicants as well to, as much as possible, consider group buying opportunities, whether that's through the Cranbrook Food Bank, Cranbrook Salvation Army, School District Number 5 is a big food purchaser. So for nonprofits that are looking at food projects in the future, we'd really encourage them to look at how can they access some bulk buying to stretch their dollars even further. So we're pleased to present the package that you have before you, and we would ask for support from council.
Thank you. Can I get a motion that council approve the projects and the funding levels as presented in the attachment A for allocation of available 2025-2026 Columbia Basin Ready Grants? Mover, please, Councillor Lissette. Councillor Popoff. Discussion. Real quickly, I went through them on the weekend and looked at the decisions were made, and certainly with this type of funding, there's never enough money available, and in spite of what Columbia Basin Trust, they do a great job, but, it's getting tougher every year for the nonprofits and these various volunteer groups in the communities. So it gets more difficult every year, but I will say one thing when I look through that, hats off to the three members there. It is, I thought, just really fair and equitable decisions were made. So thank you very much for representing council. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Next item of new business is from Engineering Development Services regarding the remedial action order at 1330 12th Avenue South for Gordon Glenn Felsky and Claire Maxine Felsky. Can I please have staff provide an overview of the report, please? CAO?
Yes.
CAO
So,
Virtual.
Mayor and Council, just we've got some new information that requires us to postpone this item, so we'd like to just pull that from the agenda tonight, please.
Okay. Thank you very much. We'll move on from there. That was an awful lot of reading, that one tonight. So. Next item for new business is also from an Engineering Development Services regarding remote aerial drone policy number 40-905. Can I please have staff provide a brief overview of the report?
Evening. Yeah, just a general outline of the precautions that we're taking in the flying of the drone, some of the training, the procedures, our understanding of and respecting of people's privacy as we have this drone around doing investigations for the bylaw department.
Thank you. Can I get a motion that council approve the remote aerial drone policy number 40-905? Mover, please. Councillor Stetsky, Councillor Bissett. Discussion. Councillor Stetsky, Councillor Popoff.
So there are a lot of regulations federally, I think, around drones, or is that only around airports? I'm sure we're meeting all the regulations, whether they're federal or provincial, but I know it's pretty hot in some areas in terms of drones in general.
So, yeah, Councillor Stetsky through the mayor, what I would respond to that is our drone has been chosen because it is a smaller size and weight and does not have to adhere to quite a sizable amount of regulations that Transport Canada expects of the larger drones that Staff Sergeant Barry Graham was referring to. But that being said, we are still aware that we have something in the air that could cause damage and be upsetting to others if flown in the wrong areas. But of course, we do respect certain parts of Transport Canada's expectations of any kind of drone.
Thank you, Councillor Popoff.
Yes, thanks, Mayor. I was interested that Staff Sergeant Barry has a number of little to large sized drones, and they're used indoors and outdoors and everything. And we still need bylaw to have more drones. There's no joint use agreements or.
To be fair, our drone cost, I think $250, right? We're on a different level, but the truth is it's all about the camera. And the camera's getting the information that we need, and we can let Barry and his staff fly their drones, and we'll just do ours.
Thanks, Paul. So
Yeah.
beyond the 250 for the actual drone, what do you anticipate the overall capital cost charge and staff time would be to be utilizing a drone over a course of a year?
Pretty minimal. You know, in terms of staff hours, I would say it saves us staff hours in terms of vehicles, time driving on beaten down roads, what have you. Just as Staff Sergeant Barry Graham was saying, the drones give you quick, immediate access to remote areas or to harder to reach areas.
Good answer.
And right now we're using it in 3 legal cases.
Yeah, good answer. Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, Paul. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. I had a question, but I didn't want to drone on about that, so. Oh, yeah. The final item of new business is also from Engineering Development Service regarding the active transportation plan implementation update. We have staff here going to give us an overview of this as well. Curtis and Mike.
Thank you very much, Mayor and Council. So this report is intended to provide Council with an update on overall the active transportation plan implementation, looking at just a little bit of background, a little bit of the work that's been done recently, and then a little bit of a look into the potential future projects and priorities. Just to summarize, and the council's seen this before, but we do want to make sure that we're reinforcing that the implementation of the active transportation plan and the associated projects is really a deliverable of community need identified through various engagement plans, not just in the active transportation plan, but it was identified as a priority through the OCP, through the downtown revitalization master plan, through the tourism master plan, and feedback from community groups and institutional users. We've listed a few on there where we've met with Rotary, College of the Rockies, presented these plans and seen a lot of excitement from a lot of those groups in the community. Continued investment in active transportation infrastructure is seen as a key to supporting continued growth and vibrancy in our community. As council's seen with some of the higher density developments that have been happening, especially in the downtown area that are looking at parking reductions or parking variances, this type of infrastructure to safely have other modes of traffic is really key to being able to lay the groundwork for having some of this type of redevelopment in our community. It also does tend to work towards some of the housing that's needed in our housing needs supply, looking at more of those housing forms being associated with lesser parking or people that are going to be using other modes of travel. And really from a public safety perspective, and I think it was great that it was alluded to earlier with the update from the RCMP, as we're seeing in a positive way, some more cycling or the use of e-bikes, which are becoming very popular, or the use of these scooters. There's a lot heavier and larger modes of cycling or wheeled traffic happening in the community. And that does come with associated risks and conflict if we do have those e-bikes or e-scooters either on sidewalks or if they're competing with vehicle traffic in some of those more higher frequent corridors. So really from the department's perspective, in order to have active transportation infrastructure, especially if we're talking about dedicated cycle lanes, there does need to be a standard. It's something that from a safety perspective, there needs to be a standard. From a liability perspective, there needs to be a standard. And it's not something that we look and implement lightly, and it's not something that we're really looking to implement everywhere that the plan indicates it could be. We're really looking at just some of those major corridors that are connecting some of the major hubs within the community, really connecting the downtown with, the North Star Rails to Trails, Isidore Canyon, Moore Park, looking south to Rotary Trail and some of the existing bike lanes, some of the ones that we've had on 14th Avenue South that have been in place for well over a decade. And then also looking at a connection from the downtown area going east to the college and the community forest trails, which is obviously something that's a major, hub of cycling action in the community. And the college, as it's growing, is really a big hub for a lot of users in this community that are looking at other modes of traffic, whether it be cycling or using the bus. So looking in the future, we've recognized that change is it's tough for a lot of part of our community. And it's something that we recognize and we do respect and we do understand. It's something where there is a challenge because as you look at adding these amenities, we can't have everything everywhere. And it does have impacts on other users in the road or other users within the roadway. And it is an unfortunate part of implementing change, especially when we're trying to retrofit some of these pieces of infrastructure and some of these services in existing roadways that 100 years ago we weren't really envisioning this. Some of our roadways were first used by horse and buggies. But we do the best that we can when we come to retrofitting those things. But looking at a step back, staff is really looking at trying to have a bit more of a detailed implementation and communication plan. So when it comes to some future initiatives that we were looking to implement in 2025, we've sort of pumped the brakes and want to look at having more of a comprehensive plan on how we're going to communicate and look at rolling those out in the future. So that would be looking at in 2026. There's a few items that we're going to be looking to put together that would look at extending those connections up to the college. That's one of those priorities. We've sat down with representatives from the college and representatives from the cycling community, and we feel that would be a really big boon to allow people that maybe even are just parking up at the college using using the recreation infrastructure up there, and then they can cycle downtown and they don't need to drive and park. As we do know, that congestion, the vehicle congestion in the downtown area isn't really conducive to a vibrant community, really. The downtowns that are having more events and more success are more people-centric, not vehicle-centric. We're also looking at the potential for a road diet on McPhee Road to see if there's ability to add dedicated cycle lanes there. It's currently a 4-lane road. We've looked at it. There's simply not enough traffic to warrant having 4 lanes in there. If anything, it causes more potential traffic disruptions by people having to pass each other. So we could look at putting dedicated cycle lanes there as a part of the active transportation project that the city received grant funding for to get up to Wildstone, and then a future connection up to Moore Park. But we do know if we were to do that right away this summer, it would probably get a lot of feedback. And again, change can be scary and it can be concerning to people. So we're going to look at really slowly trying to roll out some of this information, get things in front of council, get things in front of the public, meet with some more of the stakeholders in the cycling community, and have them be a part of trying to onboard this, so it doesn't look like this is not an engineering department initiative. This isn't our pet project. This is something we're really trying to deliver on behalf of the community for its greater good. Moving along to looking back at some of the work that was done, and this is probably some of the more sticky or difficult points that we've had to work on, is the recent installation that was done on 2nd Street North, associated with the change in the intersection there, where we went from signalized intersection to a 4-way stop. When that design was done, we decided to take advantage of the opportunity to look at implementing some active transportation and dedicated cycle lanes along 14th Avenue and along 2nd Street North. Now, obviously, council and staff have seen a lot of feedback from that. And as with change, a lot of that feedback has been negative with some of the parking issues or with some of the concerns about visibility or usability, or people just getting used to transitioning to what seems like a big change. And I'll be perfectly honest, when I first drove down there, it was a big change. And after some time, it's less of a big change, but it is something where it was a good example of how how the transition and the change was shocking, and it is something that we need to continue to try to be better with. When it comes to those specific sections, there has been a lot of concerns about some of the ticketed parking that's been happening on the section of 14th Avenue between 2nd and 4th Street North. And I think one of the concerns there is that the change in no parking was moved from the Kinsman Arena side to the opposite side of the road, where there's some residences and some commercial businesses, because it is commercially zoned, but there are some residents and some businesses there as well. That change was done primarily for intersection alignment. The addition of the bike lanes there doesn't change whether or not there has to be a no parking zone on one side or the other. There always was a no parking zone in front of the Kinsman Arena. It was moved to the other side. And staff looking at the use and the usership of that section of road, we see that there's a lot more people parking now on the Kinsman Arena side of the road to use the Kinsman Arena, especially over the winter. It's very, very heavily used. I know with talking with Rec and Culture and Director Thors, there's not a lot of parking available all the time when there's a lot of events happening at both arenas there. So having that stretch of parking there, rather than having people park on the other side of the road and jaywalk across with their hockey equipment and their gear, is seen as something that we believed was safer. But we do understand that taking away the parking that's happening on the other side of the street did have a negative impact to some individual property owners, and we do recognize that. In that instance, we still feel that for the greater good, the current configuration is there. If we were to remove the bike lanes, we would still have to have no parking remain on one side or the other. So based still on the totality of the feedback and the information that we do have, we do still feel that what was implemented was in the greater good of the community. And again, if we were to remove the bike lanes, we would still have to restrict parking on one side of the road, primarily for snow storage. But that's when the greatest impacts happen, because a lot of those users are using it during the winter when the arenas and the ice are in place. The other section of concern was 14th Avenue between 2nd Street North and Baker Street. This is the area that does have a fair bit of paint. If we do look at the actual plan that was initially put in place, staff did pare back that plan, not just because paint is extremely expensive, but because it would just look even busier and more confusing than it is right now. And I know there was a lot of people that had some difficult things to say about decision making and designs and those types of things, and we understand that. But it was based on a minimal accepted standard to get those bike lanes in there and still accommodate the school bus drop-off zone that's in that area, and to still accommodate two-way traffic. When we're looking at cycling lanes, you do need to have a lane on each side to accommodate both modes of traffic, or two lanes on one side. Either way, the lanes and the width, they need to be in place. For that section, though, we do recognize that the transition, especially going into the Baker Street area, is probably more abrupt than it needed to be, and it's not very clear. And it is understood that there could be some people that approach that realignment, and it can be confusing to people. So staff have prepared and are looking at multiple options to make that transition much more smoother, much more visible, and much more natural for the traveling public. So it's not something where they can feel like they get caught up in a weird spot partway through the intersection. As the future bike lanes that are proposed to go further south to 2nd Street South, as that were to continue, that transition that happens right now at Baker Street wouldn't be so abrupt, and it wouldn't be there. It would be much more natural, and the transition would occur at the next signalized intersection where people are stopping, starting, and they have time to see what's going on. So we do recognize that there are some improvements that can be done in the short term there, and we plan on making some of those recommendations and using our existing operating budget with the line painting to make things safer. We've even looked at having directional arrows. There's some people that are concerned that they've seen people driving the wrong way down one of those lanes. So there's certainly some more line paint, some arrows, and some more semi-permanent signage that we can put in place there that will help. But we also do know, and through the active transportation plan recommendations, implementing change is difficult, but if we pull it back right away, it's probably not going to come back. and people do get used to things. When the bike lanes were first installed, and I was in the community at the time at the top of 14th Avenue, we were hoping that would be a continuous thing. I wasn't with the city at that time, but I do know there was a lot of concerns because people used to park on 14th Avenue up in Southview. Some of those bike lanes were put there. It was a big, big change. Now it's status quo. When people move into the area, when they're biking in the area, when they're driving in the area, that's just the way it is, especially on these, collector roads or these major roads. On-street parking is often impacted in place of more pedestrian-friendly use or cycling-friendly use. So without getting into it much further, staff did try to show through this report that we've looked at alternative options because we do understand that that we're trying to blend a lot of different impacts to different users, but also look at continuing and understanding that we need to have enough of a network in place for it to be safe and for it to be utilized by all. And if we're going to look at, embracing, the cycling infrastructure and the cycling culture from a tourism perspective, community safety perspective, getting less vehicles on the road perspective, and some of the innovative things like the e-scooters that are taking off. Removing bike lanes aren't going to change the fact that e-bikes and e-scooters are coming. So we're trying to do what we can to best accommodate that in a safe way, recognizing impacts do happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Can I get a motion that council receive the report from the Engineering Development Service Department titled Active Transportation Plan Implementation Update? Mover, please, Councillor Bissett, Councillor Stetsky. Discussion. Councillor Bissett, Councillor Stetsky will go around the table. We'll go there, then we'll like this.
Well, thanks, and thank you for the report. And yes, bike lanes are necessary and we have to adjust to change. One thing that I was wondering about is if we were going to go ahead and put bike lanes on 2nd Street South, because you come down 14th and I'm turning right onto 2nd and then it just tapers off. And that's a pretty wide road. So I was just wondering about, I would think all that's needed is some paint, but maybe you could comment on that.
Councillor Bissett, through the mayor, yes, 2nd Street South is identified as another one of those major east-west corridors. There was some work done in 2018 or 2019 with the multi-use path closer to downtown, and we do recognize that having that extended from where that ends, I believe, at around 11th Avenue over to 14th, over past in front of the schools, and then down to, again, looking at getting to the golf course and then past to some of the trailheads then beyond. It is a natural corridor to do so. We're just trying to determine if we do add these with the paint and the bike lanes, again, because parking impacts are really sensitive, we want to make sure that as a part of the plan that we're working on right now is really recognizing where parking impacts may happen, so that we can provide advanced notification and awareness of it. Because a lot of these things, the reactions are, if we would have known, we could have had some time to accommodate and get used to things.
So I think I made a mistake in saying 2nd Street South. I think I mean 2nd Street, the one going by the high school. Is that 2nd Street North?
Yes,
what I meant.
2nd Street North is
Okay,
planned.
sorry about that. That was
Absolutely,
my fault.
both in 2nd Street North, absolutely, and that's the connection up to College Way. And we did some bike lane installation when we repaved College Way, I think 4 or 5 years ago. And that's one of those, definitely a major hub of the community is the college and all the cycling infrastructure down there. And getting that connection to downtown is really important. One of the issues there is that we are looking at the potential for parking impacts. Now, on that 2nd Street North, not a lot of people park adjacent to the school fields, but when there is a soccer tournament, it's filled with buses. Now, if that only happens a handful of times a year, but we're adding cycling infrastructure that's available, 6, 8, 10 months out of the year. So I've talked with my staff, and the plan is to proactively reach out to impacted users like the school district to say, if this is coming, how can we work proactively to look at other locations where they could utilize buses? Maybe we can offer, Western Financial Place parking lot for buses to be able to be there during school events. Maybe they still have a drop-off zone, but then they can go park elsewhere, so we can minimize those impacts. And those are some of those proactive things that, rather than jumping and putting in more line paint, recognizing let's do this a little bit slower because we're going to be better off in the long run.
Point. Councillor Stetsky.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, and thank you very much for putting focus on active transportation. Very much support the initiative and appreciate the work that's been done on it. A couple of quick things back to our favorite spot on front of Key City Theatre on 14th Avenue. Well, a lot of people have asked me, why is that concrete barrier there by the stop sign? And secondly, I'm wondering if you've thought about up by the hospital, there's sort of seasonal parking and no parking during the winter because of snow concern. Is that something that you could consider in that stretch in front of the Kinsman theaters, so to do it seasonally?
Councillor Stetsky through the mayor. I'll go to the second question first. So yes, in the area in front of the Kinsman, we have considered whether or not there could be seasonal restrictions. That's something staff are going to look at a little bit further. Part of the concern, I guess not the concern, the greatest impact and the greatest need for parking in that area is during the winter when the ice sheets are in place. So it could alleviate some of those concerns that would happen alternatively, but it's something that we'll have to look at and monitor and just confirm what we can do. So yes, that is something that I didn't put in the report because we didn't want to provide anything that we weren't sure that we could follow through with. The concrete barrier at the stop sign, I believe those are primarily there just to keep if there's visibility issues or there's snow in place, it just keeps people from driving somewhere where they shouldn't. And that's one of the challenges that we do have, obviously, in our climate, is that you can get a few inches of snow, then all of a sudden all the nice line paint that's supposed to help you know where you're supposed to go doesn't help. So that's why we have to have some of that infrastructure above to do so. And as we look at this longer term implementation, those are some of those tools that we need to look at utilizing, whether it's some of those plastic bollards that people, if they run into them, it doesn't hurt anything, but it helps delineate some of the lanes in a little bit more appropriately.
Councillor Ray?
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate the report and all the time and effort and thought from our staff that has gone into this and will continue to go into it. You know, I think it's really important that Cranbrook is looking at developing our active transportation. If we look at the project on McPhee Road that we have the grant for, I mean, there's real synergy there between work we needed to do on the road anyways and enhanced active transportation. So the two, in that case, really support each other. And I think it's a real net benefit to the community. So I'm hopeful that we'll be able to see more of that, you know, that we'll continue to pursue those grant opportunities and look for those synergies. I'm really pleased to hear, you know, that we're looking at proactively connecting with SD number 5 for conversations, whether it's about buses parking next to the Baker Field for soccer tournaments, or, you know, as was noted, working with SD5 about some of their bus pickup and drop off arrangements. You know, there's other active transportation opportunities. I know some communities have bike buses that really encourage collective biking to school rather than coming in cars. So there's some really cool opportunities. There's some municipalities that actually lead Go by Bike Week. You know, so those kinds of activities in the community. I know in Castlegar, and I'm sure it was probably expensive and they probably had a grant for it, but in Castlegar, for a number of their active transportation routes, they have beautiful bright green paint that very clearly marks those pathways, and as I say, it was probably expensive and is probably expensive to maintain, but it looks really cool and definitely adds visibility to their active transportation. So I think there's a great deal of potential here, and I know we all, as drivers, primarily drivers, bikers, walkers, we have our feedback on how we think the traffic patterns look. But even just reading this report, you know, I learned some new considerations that I wasn't aware of. I hadn't thought of the alignment of intersections, right? I remember seeing people park on the other side of the street from the Kinsman, put their hockey bag on, do the check and jaywalk in the winter. So, I mean, I appreciate that that's a real safety concern to say, you know what, seems like it'd be safer to have people going to the rink, park on the same side as the rink. So, I appreciate the frustration from homeowners and business owners if they've had a change in their parking. And I think staff's outlined the importance of, we'll do our best to enhance our communications and those kinds of things. So I think there's lots of good work going on here, and it's really important. And it's an important part of us being the largest urban center in the Kootenays. This is part of Cranbrook growing into the future.
Thank you. Councillor Papa.
Yes, thanks, Mayor. Quick change of subject and I'll get on to my main point. There was plans for the city to put traffic lights at Baker and 14th Ave. Is that still the plan or is that now off the books? Right where the kids cross to go to Safeway for lunch.
Councillor Popoff through the mayor, it isn't still in the 5-year plan to my understanding.
It isn't?
I believe so, but it's in 2028 or something. So we'll be discussing that in the future and future budgets. 'Cause I know some councillors have addressed maybe removing it, but
So
it's one of the
something-
only ways to stop the kids and teenagers periodically without having them all the time. But that's discussion for a future date.
So for future, so I just want to know if that was in. Very good, thank you. So we've been doing active transportation in Cranbrook 20 plus years from ago when Rotary Trail first came in. And it connects from Idlewild and Elizabeth Wake all the way through town, all the way to the North Star Trail. So that's in place. And if we can do more to bring bicycle lanes to connect with that, then we're continuing with the major arteries and supplementing that with these bike lanes. Having said that, keeping in mind, probably 99% of the people that use the roads are still us, the drivers. So we have to be very cognizant that as we go forward with these plans, I think we learned from all the complaints that we had from those two blocks last year, it has to make sense. It has to make sense to the people on the two wheels. It has to make sense for the homeowners that have just lost their parking. It has to make sense for where do you park buses, and I think you had a good suggestion for that. But primarily, it has to make sense for the driver. When you first come across what we experienced in front of Key City Theatre and Kinsman, people were panicking, and we heard that. So it must make sense for all the above. And I noticed when you're talking about the stakeholder groups you were getting information from, I didn't hear you mention any of the driving community. You mentioned wild horse cycling and other active transportation, but I think we really need to build into our metrics, what does the driver, the 99% of the people using the roads, how do they feel about some of these initiatives, and get some legitimate feedback. If it doesn't make sense to everybody, this may continue to persist, and we don't know, none of us here need that, right? Where we put in our bicycle lanes, one side of the road or both sides of the road, it has to be continuous. You can't just all of a sudden stop or all of a sudden start. You're 2 blocks into it and now it's gone again. I mean, that to me does not make sense. So if there's a master plan of where we want to paint our lines for bicycle lanes as a master plan, maybe consider doing it in a broader scale all at once. So there is continuity when you're riding your bikes and it makes sense. And then it makes sense for the drivers as well. I don't know. I think that piecemealing these places, and I even look at your maps, and right there on 2nd Street North, they stop. The bike lanes, probably less than 100 meters onto 2nd, they stop again. So there's no lines anymore? It just, to me, it's got to make sense. So as we go forward, and I'm not trying not to be negative, but critical, it has to make sense to the homeowners, to the drivers, and to the cyclists, so that it makes sense, so that we can adapt quicker and not create the unintended consequences of people being frustrated. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Bassett again.
I agree with some of what Councillor Popoff has said, but one of the things there's been a huge change in cycling with the advent of electric bicycles and these electric scooters. And that makes a huge difference in Cranbrook, because if you live up the hill, it's a big deal. And having electric bicycles on our roads is a game changer, and that can go all year round. And so, yes, there's growing pains, and we can't guarantee no frustration for our citizens. I'm afraid if anybody in the next election wants to campaign on that, they might get elected, but I don't think they'll be able to implement it. So, yes, change is difficult, but I mean, we have to evolve and we can look at what other cities are doing. I mean, I was just in Vancouver for a holiday and the biking infrastructure there is phenomenal. However, there's places you're riding and it just ends. And the same in Victoria. So, I mean, it is something, and cyclists that ride on the road are adaptable to that. I mean, people that are more nervous are on the dedicated bike paths or maybe looking for where there are cement barriers. But we're making good progress and we need to continue with that. And we can't guarantee no growing pains.
Certainly, Councillor Papa.
I agree. I agree. And we are making progress. And it's the speed of that progress and the adaptation that all users need to adjust to. So I guess, is it possible to, instead of piecemealing the bicycle lanes here, there, and everywhere, is it possible to do a broader painting and encompass more of our major arteries at the same time? So again, it makes sense. And I think that could go a long way to relieving some of the unintended consequences from the public.
Councillor Popoff through the mayor, that is a great point, and I think that's in hindsight when we try to take advantage of the opportunity given with the intersection change, and we had to do some line painting and some work at the same time. We wanted to get the work done that we could get done within the budget and within the constraints, and I think that is one of the recommendations in hindsight that. It could have been more beneficial to extend those lanes to the next intersection, to the next natural transition at that time, or it would have been an opportunity to maybe wait and implement it at that time. So that's why bringing the report today mentioned not doing any work this year because we were looking at phasing things potentially in for over a couple years, taking this year to really plan that in 2026 to have those extensions to make sure that there is continuity so that those installations do make sense, or if there is a transition, that it's a transition in an area that that does make sense and it makes that continuous alignment. So that is exactly what we are trying to do, and that does give us a little bit more time to reach out if there are some of these anticipated road users or property owners fronting those areas that we have more time to get them on board.
Thank you. Certainly, our active transportation plan, somebody mentioned started the Rotary Way. So yeah, that was a start. That was a lot of years ago. And really it kind of sat there for a number of years. And so, this is a new start. And, it's evolving. It's something that's got to evolve and it's changed. So any city, any community, sometimes change is a little hard to accept. I look at, I spent some time in Kelowna last year and I drove some of the same roadways every day. And I spent a number of years down there working, and those bike lanes weren't there when I was working down there. So you go back and it was quite different to me. Quite frankly, some of my old shortcuts and whatnot, they were confusing because of the bike lanes there, but you know what? Everybody else got it. They're driving it daily. So, I think a lot of this stuff is just adapting to the change and then, accepting that, again, that it is evolving and that certainly alternate means of transportation is increasing in this community. It's at an accelerated rate. It really is. So, to do nothing and leave Rotary Way there, well, we're not really moving forward, are we? And we're going to find a time where it's going to be in crisis. We're going to be making these knee-jerk reactions just to try and compensate for what we didn't do, with the proper planning. So I appreciate what you're doing. It doesn't matter what you do, guys. Not everybody's going to be happy, but I'm very impressed with the amount of work and we've come a long way in the last few years with this, and it's on you guys, so thank you very much. So I guess I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Good work, guys. Okay, we're moving into administrative updates. First, we have an administrative update from Recreation and Culture. Can I please have staff speak to the aquatics pilot? project initial survey results. And we have Trevor's on hand tonight.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So tonight I bring you two updates. The first update, yes, is the aquatics pilot project initial survey results. So our pilot project is underway, and the initial surveys, 205 of them were completed, and it does show a lot of the sentiment that we knew the public was talking about. So just a bit of backstory. Obviously, in 2003, we did our rec and culture review, and then in 2024, the city did a statistically valid survey. I got some results that said, although a small amount, said they would like to see some changes in rec and culture and events. So for this 5-year budget cycle, staff were asked to bring back some possible savings. One of those from Rec and Culture is this pilot project, which is a 3-month closure of the pool for 16 hours a week. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, early mornings and mid-afternoons. So the surveys are attached, and I've put together sort of a summary of a lot of the sentiments that were in there. One of them being that there are people that use the pool before they go to work, and this is hindering that. We knew that was going to happen going into this, and just trying to find out if there's alternatives for these people. The midday access, particularly for students at schools. So the hope was that this new format would combine them into going at the same time, so just more efficient use. Memberships and refunds. A lot of the surveys talked about lifeguards losing jobs and people not going, and we losing revenue per se. So that I think a lot of the initial survey is the unknown, and now that we're in this and the citizens are seeing how this is working, we're going to get possibly different results from our next half of our survey that's going on. There are no lifeguards that lost any hours of work. They've all been accommodated and whatnot. As far as memberships, we've had 6 memberships come in and cancel, and subsequently 4 of those have turned around and bought different types of passes. So perhaps not using the pool as much, but still using the pool. Just moving on to the numbers, sort of page 3 of that, my report. That's what's showing the monthly averages at each time and the hourly averages at each time. And then the total 5 months average. So that time, so 6 a.m. is actually a 6:30 to 7. That's the number of people that scanned in at that time. And we average 11.8 users in that first half an hour of the pool opening per day. Now it gets further up, so that the busier times are, yes, it is that 12 to 3, and that is the times where the school joint use agreement, School District 5, comes into effect. And we do also have other schools that pay for lessons. So it is a big time frame to use there. The hope was with this pilot project is just to become more efficient. It's more efficient to have 100 people in the pool instead of having 30 or a class every hour and whatnot. And if you look at the numbers in the 7 o'clock, which is the days of the week that our pool closes at 8, so that's 7 o'clock. That when we have an average of 4 people that come in or 6.8 people that come in, it's just they've been in there earlier, so they scanned in at 7 and swam until, or pardon me, scanned in before 7 and swam until 8 o'clock. So those numbers are generally going to be lower and whatnot. Any questions on the pilot project?
Councillor Setsky?
The question is more for CEO Fertro. So when will the question come back to council for a decision on whether or not we're going to revert to old hours or stay with new ones?
Mayor Price through to Councillor Stetsy. So the survey closes June 15th. So after that point, we'll be compiling results, like looking at any net savings and what the impact was based on the surveys, and make recommendations and come back to council. So it'll be, after June 15th, however long it takes us to do that analysis and come back to council with recommendations.
Trevor?
Councillor Stetsky through the mayor. So the staff have planned to operate the summer hours as normal. And the reason being is that we do have to schedule our lifeguards so far in advance that if we waited until June 15th and the subsequent time to do an analysis, likely the lifeguards schedule for the summer would be chaotic. So we do need to start scheduling the lifeguards now for July. So the plan was to operate the summer 2 months, July and August, as normal hours, and then decide, get the analysis, bring back to council that decision to start September.
Councillor Ray?
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks very much for all the information in the report, Trevor, and I hope, the folks in the public who are interested in the issue have time to look through the details as well. One thought from the early morning people might be, well, could we open the pool early and then kind of shut it down mid-morning and then open up again? But I'm thinking that kind of split shift, I can only imagine that would be very challenging, if not really not feasible because of minimum 4-hour working shifts, if that's still an employment standards thing. Do you want to just comment on, any folks who might be thinking, geez, is a split shift of some kind a possibility?
Mayor Price, to Councillor Ray, that's exactly it. We do have to keep the shifts enticing for the staff, and to come in and work 2 hours and then, come back again 4 hours later to work another 2 or 3 hours. It's not enticing. It's not a good atmosphere for the staff. That's why we picked a 4-hour window in the morning. So a 4-hour shift is there, close for 4 hours, open again for 4 hours. That's our Monday, Wednesday, Friday right now. Just to keep that environment healthy for the lifeguard staff.
Certainly.
Thank you. And then just a follow-up, we'll see what the survey results are and whatnot, but I'm hoping that we'll have enough lead time depending on, what the decision is. But if we are proposing a different structure for school groups around swimming lessons, like you say, to really maximize efficiency and usage at the pool for those times, I'm hoping if we can give schools enough lead time that they'll then be able to adjust their planning accordingly to make that work. Because we certainly agree, water safety is very important, but I'm hoping if we have enough lead time that the schools will have an opportunity to adjust on their side. Have you had any initial conversations with schools about that kind of planning, or we're just waiting for the survey results?
Mayor Price to Councillor Ray. We've had discussions with individual instructors at the schools. The school district doesn't book generally through one individual. We're dealing with each individual class as they call in with their requests, and even the schools that are outside Cranbrook itself that are coming in to use the school. So it's not an easy task to get this process done. So the hope is that after the results come in, we have an answer before school's out this year as to what's happening in the fall, and then the instructors can figure out their plan for the fall before they've even taken their summer holidays.
Thanks, Trevor. And we have one more update from Trevor tonight. It is regarding the aquatics heat exchanger and sand filter repair.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is another asset management I'm bringing back to council, and this one is a bit of a smiley, happy one as opposed to something broke and it's going to cost us a lot of money to fix. So the team at Western Financial Place, the recreation and culture technicians and the public works trade staff have done an excellent job with this. So you may have actually read in our aquatic survey that the wave pool was struggling coming to temperature. And staff through their regular checks saw that the flow meters and the pressure valves were fluctuating up and down, up and down, up and down. So along with the plumber, we took apart the heat exchanger and noticed a bunch of sand. So that it looks like rust in that picture. That's oxidized sand and a little bit of rust, but that was clogging the heat exchanger, which was not allowing water to flow through to get hot from the brine which comes off the boiler system that we just replaced. So more just a big kudos to the staff. They found the sand when they took apart the heat exchanger, thinking the heat exchanger might have been broken. Found the sand. That led to them believing that the sand filter was possibly broken or having issues, which just comes down to more of those pictures. The sand filter, so one of our technicians, Dave Smith, stood beside it for me to take a picture so you can understand the size of it. It is a small car. They're huge. And inside those, they have plastic pieces that suck the water out. So the water enters through the top of the sand, gets filtered through the sand, and these laterals suck the water back in to go into the pool. Well, if those laterals are broken, they're designed to be small enough that when the water gets pulled out of the sand stays behind. But if they break or sand gets through, it's normal to have a little bit of sand here and there, but not a ton. So it was that maintenance checks that turned into, here's a problem, let's look at the problem. Of course, with that one picture, you see where the heat exchanger sits in the corner of that room, and all the pipes are rusty. That's due to the environment of that room, the chloramines and whatnot in the air. The acid day tanks are right close to that. All those pipes, so they're brittle, they break, they come apart when we remove them. So all in all, just a big kudos to the team where we're finally getting to that point of fixing problems before they become big problems.
Good news. Council, everything good? Thanks very much, Trevor. Next administrative update is from Fire and Emergency Services. We got Scott. Scott's online to give us the 2025 Q1 call and volume.
Good evening, Council. Thanks for having me tonight. I did just want to bring a short update about Q1 for 2025, as we've seen stability in our first quarter with the last quarter of 2024. So 525 calls for service for the fire department, including medical and fire rescue calls. That's down 132 calls for the 3-month period from just half a year ago. So we saw a pretty significant drop in call volume in the last quarter of 2024, and that's held steady into the first quarter of 2025, which I'm hopeful continues. The stability exists right across our call type. So 28% again of fire rescue calls and 72% on the pre-hospital care side of the demand chart. And very notably, and I think it's worth saying, is that overdoses didn't even make our top 5 in the first quarter. So that's really good news. No way to tell what that's from, but regardless, I think it's a good news story, and I hope it continues in that direction. With respect to call distribution across the city, we can see a few hotspots on the map that was included in the press release that's going to go out and attached to this administrative update. They're not nearly as significant as they used to be. They're along the highway corridor, and the downtown core still continues to be our busy area, but I don't think that will ever change. The hotspots are not nearly as prevalent as they were just a year ago. So that's good news as well.
Thanks, Scott. Council? Scott, yeah. Weren't you doing around 72 overdoses a quarter last year? And that was almost, seems to me, consecutive quarters. The number 72 sticks in my mind. Is that right? What it was last year?
Yeah, overdoses for a couple of quarters were our number one call type, and this quarter 72 was the number in the first quarter of 2025, but that was breathing problems, which is a pretty common ailment, and we do go to commonly. So yeah, we're usually our highest call volume call type is around 70-75, and overdoses did kind of take that column for a couple of quarters in a row. But I'm really happy to see that it's not at the top of our list. It's not even in the top 5 now.
Yeah, exactly. You know, certainly we know the impact on the individual, but you know, the toll it takes on family members and on the responders, you know, I mean, that's significant. So that's a great stat you want to see come down for sure.
Yeah.
Councillor Popov?
Yes, thanks, sir. Hi, Scotty. So just quickly, our paramedic team here in Cranbrook, are they responding to more and therefore not causing our emergency services to respond, or is there any change that way?
Yeah, I think there's some stability in what's happening on the pre-hospital care side of things and with BC Ambulance. We'll have an opportunity to talk about it at the committee of the whole meeting next week. But I think it's probably a lot of different factors. I think the drug supply might be coming into town a little bit safer. Some of the work being done through the mayor's task force in Marcel's office with social development coordination is providing sort of point of care services out into the community, which I think, if I was to make a guess, is having a positive impact. And I think those things are definitely all combining to show up in our statistics, which is what I can share with you. I don't know the exact cause of why we're seeing this, but I think there's a number of things that are moving in the right direction, and I'm happy to see it.
Thanks, Scott. Further? No. Thanks very much, Scott. Great news.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And that brings us to Mayor and Councilors' reports. Let's start with Councilor Stetsky's end tonight.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mayor. A couple of quick things. If you are looking for something to do over the next little while, please take in the play at the studio stage door, The Cemetery Club. The acting was excellent, very emotional in some parts of it as well. So highly recommend The Cemetery Club at the studio stage door. Several of us were at the Association of Kootenay Boundary Local Government meetings for 3 days, which brings together all of the municipal officials from across the Kootenays. And I want to just reflect on 2 things. One of the vendors was ICBC. I had a chat with her about roundabouts, whether or not ICBC still funds roundabouts. And the answer is yes, they do. And she made the point of saying they have what they call button roundabouts. You don't need a big area to put a roundabout in. And I keep thinking about 7th Avenue and 2nd Street South, 11th Avenue and 2nd Street South, and potentially where the new College Way Road is going to come into 30th Avenue. So I would encourage staff really to think about button roundabouts. The other thing that I thought was quite significant is, of course, at AKBLG, you go through a number of resolutions. And I'm sure some of you will recall that Cranbrook City Council here has been supportive of trying to get a youth detox and treatment center located here in southeastern British Columbia. Very pleased to say that it was the one resolution at AKBLG that had unanimous support from all of the directors, mayors, councillors from across the Kootenays. And just quickly, the problem is that currently if you have a youth and you're trying to get help for them in terms of detox or recovery, your choices are Kamloops, 8-hour drive, and Kelowna, and you have to stay there with your child until they can find a room, which costs thousands of dollars sometimes for people that really can't afford it. And there's no public transportation to get our kids to these centers either. So the resolution that was approved was, therefore be it resolved that the BC government, through the Ministry of Children and Family Development and the Ministry of Health, provide a minimum of 10 publicly funded detox and treatment beds for youth to be located in a center in southeastern British Columbia. So that had unanimous support.
Thank you for that, Councillor Stetsky. I just want to acknowledge you for bringing that resolution forward to council and moving it forward to the KPGLP. So thank you very much. Councillor Bissett.
Well, thank you, and thanks to the city of Kimberley who hosted the AKBLG event. It was great being at the conference center, and the whole thing was very well run. So kudos to the organizing committee as well. I was able to go to Kootenai Orchard School and speak to Ms. Kirkpatrick and Shadeli's class about sustainability and what the city was working on with that. So that was a great afternoon. It's always nice to talk to students. They had a lot of questions, and yeah, no, quite enjoyable, especially as a former teacher. A little bit of teaching is great. So anyways, that's all.
Thank you. Councillor Ray.
Thank you. This past weekend, I had the opportunity to attend a few games at KISA's Spring 5 versus 5 Elevation Mechanical Cup. So on Saturday and Sunday. So it was awesome to see the dome full of kids playing soccer. Thank you to KISA and all the parent volunteers and coaches. Just awesome to see. If you could bottle all the energy that was in there, we'd be in good shape. So that was great. In addition to Cranbrook Community Theatre's excellent production, which is currently on, Wild Theatre is getting ready for their production of Footloose. So if you want to get in touch with your 80s roots, check out Footloose, May 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th. And it's a matinee on the Sunday. And last but certainly not least, our friends and neighbors from ACUM are organizing the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Peoples Walk. That's on Saturday, May 3rd. Starts at 11:15 a.m. at Anchors, and it's a walk to Rotary Park, and then the event goes till 2 p.m. So folks are interested, I encourage them to consider attending that event as well.
Thank you. Councillor Popoff.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So I also attended the AKBLG in Kimberley, thanks to the City of Kimberley, as Councillor Blissett mentioned, and some really good programs, really good learning sessions, and I think we have a really positive executive going forward as well. Also, right after our last council meeting, I think it was the same night, on behalf of Cranbrook Tourism, I attended the multi-sports clubs get-together. And well, I thought the city of Cranbrook was going to be in the crosshairs. If anything, it was the absolute opposite. So that's good news. All of the sports clubs attending, from pickleball to tennis to badminton to volleyball, basketball, track and field, et cetera, everyone was positive, and there seems to be the beginnings of a plan for what that membership looks like. So there seems to be a plan for where some of the capital, the funding in general is coming from, and with the desire to continue to work forward. So, and Cranbrook wasn't in the crosshairs for anything. If anything, they thank Cranbrook for hopefully helping them going forward, not as an owner in those sort of ways, but just as a supporter for the multi-sports complex. And then at one point, talking of the different groups, are talking about what they would do to bring in events for their tournaments, for their events. And you start doing the dollars of what that economic spinoff from out-of-town sports teams coming to Cranbrook is, and that could be a huge increase in our economic development as a city. So positive, and I'll continue to attend those on behalf of Cranbrook Tourism.
Thank you very much for that. And I have nothing to report. So with that, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn. Councillor Blissett, Councillor Ray, all in favor? We are adjourned. Thank you. Good meeting, guys.